So I'd like to start off the video by just thanking each and every one of you for the love and support my first two videos got. I didn't expect or really even want them to blow up as much as they did. I honestly don't think the first video was that great, but I just figured, it's my first video and no one's gonna watch it, so what does it matter? As I record this, we're sitting at about 75,000 views and still climbing. Also, Hank Green saw it, which is weird. He didn't seem to like it, but that's okay though. I'm actually currently in the process of building myself a home where I'll have more freedom to work on these videos. So I just planned these first few videos to be sort of a test run for what I want to do. So to even the angry commenters who completely missed the point of the video, thank you. Anyways, on to the topic of today's video. So on the 1st of this month, I was watching my favorite streamer, Pay Money Wubby, and the topic of generative AI had come up as OpenAI had just announced Sora 2. Wubby then spent some time on stream playing around with Sora, trying out different prompts and having some fun, and naturally this led to some very civil, calm, and level-headed conversations within the community and on the subreddit. But as I was watching the video, I realized that I didn't even consider what effect generative AI might have on the future of music, for better and for worse. So let's just get the obvious right out of the way. Generative AI is not only lazy and soulless, but it also relies on questionable usage of copyrighted material and takes work away from people. And we're not just talking menial labor jobs that no one really wants to do, like we've seen with other technological innovations of the past. We're talking music, art, writing, things that are a fundamental part of who we are as a species. One of the things that anthropologists and archaeologists actually use to try to determine when we developed sapience is the emergence of art. Paintings, jewelry, musical instruments, and so on. Or you can point to the importance of art and music and religions and philosophies from around the globe. So generative AI poses a threat to the very things that make us human. Things that are really more or less unique to us. And we've already seen generative AI kill off a lot of freelance work. Speaking as someone who has done freelance voiceover work, I noticed a pretty sharp drop-off right around the time that generative AI came out. And I can only imagine it's worse for those that work in fields like writing or editing where AI can do a better job with it. In regards to music, we're seeing a range of uses for AI. Some debatably okay, like having ChatGPT generate some ideas and then bouncing off them. And on the other end of the spectrum, we're seeing entire songs, albums, and artists just fabricated. We've seen AI artists and bands pop up on Spotify, or people using AI to make fake songs for real artists, or just recently we saw the emergence of so-called AI actors, which is honestly a bizarre concept regardless of how you feel about AI. And as I mentioned earlier, generative AI relies on taking work from artists mostly without our permission in order to train the LLM on. And then there's the issue of defamatory or sexual content being used to spread libel, disinformation, or otherwise cause harm to someone's reputation. Anyone can now generate a song where Billie Eilish calls for the extermination of Canadians. And now she has to go through all the effort to try to prove to people that she doesn't actually think we should genocide Canadians and that she didn't actually write and record that song. Sort of reminds me of that Osama song that was attributed to Eminem, but on steroids. So no doubt, generative AI is going to cause a lot of harm, whether that's to people's jobs, their reputations, or whatever. However, I'm not so sure the future is all doom and gloom. For starters, AI is very likely a bubble that will pop within the next few years, if not sooner. Now, that's not to say the technology will go away, but we might be seeing the worst of it right now or in the very near future. On top of that, laws and regulations will eventually catch up to AI and hopefully clamp down on its ability to do harm, whether that be disinformation or stealing people's work or whatever. There's also polls showing that the more people understand AI, the less likely they are to use and to trust it. So while, for example, your lead-poisoned Gen X uncle on Facebook might really get a kick out of that AI-generated Charlie Kirk tribute song, younger generations don't seem to be as keen on AI. And this is where I think some good might come from generative AI. In my first video, I talked about how we seem to be in a vibe era of music where It seems that vibes and aesthetics are taking precedence over good songwriting. And I also talked a bit about how overproduction is killing a lot of new records. We're striving to make records as perfect and as polished as possible by doing 500 takes for everything and then comping these takes and then quantizing everything and running it through Melodyne to make sure that the pitch is absolutely perfect at all times. And we finish it off by compressing and EQing any and all dynamics out of everything. Generative AI is sort of the next logical step to that. Why go through all of the effort and time to make a perfectly homogenized, algorithmically friendly product when you could just generate it? Now you may be wondering, how is any of this a good thing? This all sounds bad. But my thought is, and this is just a thought, maybe generative AI will act as a sort of reverse grunge, so to speak. If you're not somehow familiar, Seattle grunge emerged in the early 90s and is often considered to be the final nail in the coffin for a lot of the overproduced and shticky cock rock and hair metal that was dominating rock and metal for quite some time. People were getting a little tired of it, and grunge was the perfect palate cleanser. Every once in a while, you need something like that to come and shock the system and reset everything. On that first video, I got comments from people recommending the artists McGee and Dijon, and so I checked them out. And while I can say it's not really my thing, a little too indie for my tastes, the things that they're doing and the methods they're using in regards to the recording and mixing process are really quite interesting. They keep it raw and use interesting techniques such as using an old cassette machine as an effect for guitar.
There's this crazy sort of harsh, brittle distortion that's only coming through when he's hitting the guitar super hard. And it's from an old Tascam Porta Studio. You can start to kind of hear what I'm talking about. If I play lightly, I get this sort of 80s high headroom sort of thing. But then when I dig in, there's that super harsh distortion.
Or recording everybody in an untreated room with a few microphones situated on the table in order to capture the energy and dynamics of a performance. Right? And these guys aren't obscure by any means. They're getting millions of views and playing on SNL. They even did some work on Justin Bieber's most recent records. And if one of the biggest pop stars of the 21st century is working with them, they must be doing something right. Or for example, one of my favorite bands, King 810, has been doing their most recent records live on the floor in front of a small studio audience. No click track, no quantizing, no snapping anything to the grid. No sample replacements or MIDI drums.
1, 2, 3, head up and spot. Bullets coming out the boy, you can't kill a spirit with a headshot.
No pitch correction, comping, or layering.
Chariot swing low. We took hold. We don't want someone with which to grow old. We don't plan on growing old. My baby, let's go.
The results are high-energy records that are heavy while still being able to breathe. They still have dynamics. And there's something about those small imperfections that just sound good. Your ears don't get fatigued like they do when you listen to their contemporaries' records. And the man who recorded and mixed these records, Josh Schroeder, has said that he wants to do more recordings like this. And if you listen to metalcore and deathcore, you're probably familiar with some of the bands he works with. Bands like Lorna Shore, Tala, Signs of the Swarm, In Heart's Wake, Of Sulfur, Varials, and more. And as much as I love metalcore and deathcore, they desperately need to ease up on the production, maybe return to their hardcore roots. Little side note, Nickelback were a huge influence on modern metal production. Producers and mix engineers loved how tight those first few Nickelback records sounded and wanted to emulate that. And at the time, those albums were about as pristine and polished as you can get. But looking back, those albums are nothing compared to what metalcore acts are doing these days. And believe me, I have multi-tracks from both Nickelback and various metalcore and deathcore bands, and the level of production in the latter two genres is staggering. Though, of course, that isn't to say that heavy production is always bad. There are certain artists who I think it does elevate what they're doing, but for a lot of other bands, it just feels overdone and overcooked. So maybe in the same way that the AI bubble itself will pop, maybe the culminative years of overproduced, sterile records followed by generic AI slop will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I've seen some data recently saying that in recent years, older music has been dominating the market, apparently 70% or something like that. And maybe this is a sign that people aren't fully happy with the state of music right now. Maybe people are tired of the overproduction and the vibes and the aesthetics and the chords and the algorithm bait and now AI slop. Maybe people yearn for songs with meat, songs with hooks, songs that stick in their heads, songs that actually make them feel something. Speaking for myself, I've been listening to a lot of older records as of late, not because I want to. I don't want to live in the past, and I love discovering new and cool music. I'm just finding that a lot of these older records are better written than a lot of what is coming out right now. And again, like I said in the first video, I'm not trying to be old man yelling at the clouds, right? I just think that the first half of the 2020s has been a little lackluster. But, of course, we'll have to wait and see what effect generative AI will have on the future of music and whether this vibe era will hold. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, opinions, or concerns down below. Ginger Charlie out.